Hey there, welcome to Lex Design Academy. My name is mayinclude and I'll be teaching you all you need to know about the fundamentals of graphics design. So let's get right into it.
Good day, class, once again. So basically we'll be talking about fundamentals of graphic design today. That's everything you need to know about the basics of graphic design, every little foundation that you should know before you start your graphic design career. So let's get right into it. So now, what is graphic design? Graphic design, I define graphic design as an art with a purpose. It's an art that has a function. It has a purpose. That's a mission to accomplish. It is the combination of typography, the combination of images, combination of text and colors to send the message to a target audience. Okay, so now a designer essentially has two roles when he's designing a design or whatever a design is going to be creating. You have two roles. The first one is to satisfy the design brief, which I'll be explaining what the meaning of a brief. I'll explain later in this video. Now, to satisfy the design brief, or basically a brief is what is a written document or basically what explains what the client wants or how the design should look like. So basically satisfying that brief and also executing the job. Those are the two things you must do to finish a job successfully. Now, we talked about how graphic design it combines text and images to create and colors to create a design. So let's talk about text and images. Text and images are one of the main things that should be on a design. There's no real professional graphic design that doesn't have a text and image. If it's just a text, if it's just an image, then it's a picture. But if it's just text, then it's basically maybe a typographic design. But mostly you'll find text and images on a design. So it's very essential that we have that. And in this world we live in now, a lot of things are competing for our attention. If you noticed, when you go outside, you see a lot of flashy things, you see a lot of lights, you see a lot of screens and all of that. But as a designer, you should know how to combine the text and the images in a way that it's going to tell that story and still going to retain the attention of your viewers. Now, storytelling it's basically a particular skill that every designer, every human actually should have. But now, as a designer, it's something that you must really learn, because you are going to be narrating your design, a story. You're going to be narrating a story in your design. So basically, when you're designing, you need to tell the story that the client wants. That's actually satisfying the design brief. You have a target audience and you want them to understand something. You want to tell them this is what we do. So you have to arrange your text and your images in a way that is going to actually tell that story. Now, typography. Typography is a sub-branch of graphic design. Not really a sub-branch, but it's one of the components of graphic design or elements of graphic designs, which we'll talk about later in the class. Now, we talked about how text and images work, but now I want to separate them. Now, for just text itself, text typography, it usually means it literally means a written idea type, a written idea that's given a visual form. So typography for me, in a simple way, I will explain that it is the arrangement of text in a way that tells the story of the client, that fulfills the function of the design. So the arrangement of text in a way to fulfill the function of that design. Now, typefaces and fonts, these are two things that are very, very misunderstood. They have been misinterpreted, they have been taken for each other, and let's just clear everything now. Now, a typeface basically is a tree, and the fonts are the branches of the tree. So let's say for example, Arial is a typeface. But now Arial regular, Arial black, Arial medium, Arial italics, Arial condensed. These are fonts under the typeface area. Good. So now basically tracking and leading, these are all sub branches under typography. I'm explaining now. So now tracking and leading. Tracking is basically, if you look at this here, this is, if you notice, there's no space between each character, no space between each letter. All the letters are condensed together, they are merged together. That is basically, that's negative tracking. So tracking basically is the space between each character, the space between each character. So positive tracking is basically more space, additional space between each character, and negative tracking is less space between each character. Now there's something called leading. You know how there's something called leading. Leading is basically the line, the space between each line of text. Yes, each line of text, each sentence, the space between them. If you look at the second one we have here, you will notice how each line of text they are meshed together. There is no real space between them. That's called negative leading, because there is no space. So the additional space would be positive leading. That is the difference between leading and tracking in typography. Now fonts. Okay, now we talked about typefaces and fonts before, but right now I want to go deep into fonts. Now as a designer, there are certain fonts that you should not use. There are certain fonts that are old, certain fonts that you should use on your screens, because you might be designing for a print, designing for printing, you can be designing for screens. But now Microsoft has made it really easy for us. They have created a standard family of fonts for web use. An example of these fonts are Arial, Carrier New, Georgia, Times New Roman, Verdana, Trebuchet MS, and Lucida Sans. These are fonts that have been created that would make your design pop. They are safe for the human eyes on the screen. So these are fonts that you should check out and use basically on your designs. Now typefaces. Now we talked about how fonts are different from typefaces, right? We talked about how typefaces is the tree and fonts are the branches or sub branches of the tree. So now let's say for Arial, I said Arial, let's say Arial is the tree. Now Roman, italic, condensed, extended, boldface or light or thin. These are the fonts under Arial. So if it could be Arial boldface, Arial extended, Arial condensed, Arial italics, and from the name you understand their function. Italics is basically italic, condensed is condensed, extended is stretched out, boldface is boldened, light is actually thin. So that's basically how. So when you are creating your design, you will know how to use each of these or use some of them in your designs to actually emphasize some things in your designs. So now let's talk about identity and branding. Visual identity is one of them. It was something I love the most. It's a particular sub niche of graphic design I love the most, because it's basically you are creating an identity for people. You are creating an identity for a brand. So let's say you have a company and you want to create a visual identity for them. What you are doing basically is trying to create a feeling in people, or bringing people's attention to that brand. So to do that, you have to create something that is so unique to the brand and recognizable by everyone, that everyone will be able to recognize that brand from anywhere. So let's just say if you enter a supermarket now and you want to buy a drink, and you see a drink with a red bottle with a white logo, and you see on that drink with a blue bottle but a rounded white and red logo. Now you probably want to check those two out, because you know that that's probably Pepsi and that's probably Coca-Cola. So because you recognize them, so that means the designer of those brands have successfully created an identity for each of those organizations that is recognizable by the viewers, and that is a successful, fulfilled branding. So now let's talk about brand identities. Now we talked about how visual identity is for the organization, but now for a product, now let's say Nestle is a company, and they have their own visual identity created. If you notice the Nestle logo, it has that. So that was the visual identity of the organization. But they also produce water, Pure Life. They also produce Milo, and they also produce Maggi. So now that seasoning Maggi has been branded and given the name Maggi. Now the Pure Life is just water that has been branded and given the name Pure Life. Then the last one, Milo, is just any cereal, a cocoa cereal that has been branded in a way and given the name Milo. So that's actually when you're branding a particular product. It's different from branding the whole organization itself. Now, one thing you should understand, I've told you before, is that when you are trying to create identities, when you're trying to brand identities in any way, you should take take to note that you are trying to create a feeling an expression, an impression about that particular organization or product in the viewers or in the target audience. Now let's talk about the graphic design process. What are the processes what are the steps you take to create your designs? So basically, the design process is all the steps that is involved in producing or finishing your design. So basically, from the brief that the client is going to give you, from agreeing to that brief, then sketching out the ideas that you need, then also developing the model of what you want to create, then looking for resources, then buying images, everything you need, and actually executing the job itself. So this is the design process. Now let's talk about a brief. We talked about it briefly. Here I see the irony there. Now we talked about the brief briefly before, but right now I want to talk about it like more extendedly. So now the brief is the outline of what the client wants to achieve by commissioning a design. The brief is basically the heart of the design of the client. The brief is basically the heart of the client. The brief is basically the desires of the client, or exactly what the client has in his mind or in her mind or in her head. That the way the clients want, organizations want their design to look like. Sometimes briefs are not really accurate. As a designer, you need to really filter out some things in your brief to be able to understand the brief itself. So there are two different types of brief. There's the formal brief and the informal brief. Now the formal brief is a written document, possibly A4. Most times it's usually printed, but in this generation we are right now, in the smart generation, we don't really print briefs anymore. We just send it through email. So usually soft copy, but it's usually typed. That what makes it formal, because it's typed. But the second type of brief is the informal one, the one that is just by maybe a spoken word or a telephone call or in a conversation or something that is just not formal, but you would be able to understand what to do also. Now, design choices. When you are creating your design, this is still along the design process. When you are creating your design, there are specific things that you would need to select. You need to choices that you need to make, decisions that you need to make while creating your designs. Now, following the design brief, there are particular resources that you need. So, particular kind of images, a particular kind of font, the colors. So, this is the choice we're making is choosing the colors, choosing the images, choosing the text, choosing the fonts, choosing the arrangement, choosing the layout, choosing a lot of things, the elements you will use in creating your design. Now, sources of inspiration as a designer. A lot of designers have a lot of sources of inspiration. For me, is Instagram, Pinterest, Behance, Freepik. I go to places that have mad designs, and I feast my mind in those designs, and it gives me a lot of ideas to create my own. And sometimes I listen to music also when I'm designing. It helps me find new ideas. And a lot of people do art, movies, objects, a lot of things. People maybe when they are taking their bath in the shower, they have ideas. So whatever it is that it is your own source of inspiration, find it and stick to it. Now, creative thinking. Creative thinking is in, okay, let's say graphic design basically is a creative process. So it's not just about responding or fulfilling the desires of the client's brief. It's also about creating something that is unique, because the clients want something. It's possible that there are 4 or 5 other people that want that same kind of thing. So how do you create your own that to be different and unique to that particular client? That's where creative thinking comes in. So the creative thinking is thinking wider and broader than what the client says he wants, and also at the same time still satisfying what the client says he wants. Now, creative approaches. Now, to be creative, let's there are 2 things that you should understand if you want your design to actually result in fulfilling its function. One is the user-centered design. So that's basically to put yourself in the shoes of the users. Put yourself in the shoes of the viewers, the people that are actually going to see your design. So to put yourself in their shoes, to put yourself in their perspective, to see from their perspective, to know what would they see, what would they want, what are the desires, what would they like to see in their designs, in a design like this, what would they actually see in a social media design and actually click the like button. So that's when you are designing the user-centered design. The design is centered on the users. Then secondly, the keeping it simple, KISS, keeping it simple and stupid. Clarity and simplicity is very important in your designs. It's not about how many shapes you use or how many, I don't know, colors you use in your designs. It's not about making design beautiful alone. It's about making it clear that it actually fulfills the function it was created for. And now let's talk about colors. Colors are very underrated, very overlooked. People don't really think just to put any color, but actually you need to understand that colors they play a major role in your designs, because you do not want to be creating something for agriculture and using the color red, because it doesn't make sense. Agriculture is green. You don't want to be creating something for food and you're using probably blue. Food is definitely red, yellow. You don't want to create something for maybe a vacation and you're using maybe black. So you need to know the colors that will be specific for the particular function, particular mission, or I call it mission, assignment that the design wants to fulfill. And color spaces. Now, when as a designer, I'll be working with two major color spaces. That is the RGB and the CMYK. Now, RGB basically means red, green, and blue. This is a color space that is used only on screens, monitors. So if the design is going to be viewed on a screen or viewed on maybe YouTube, social media, Instagram, all of that, you use the RGB color space. But if the design is going to be used on it's going to be printed out, then definitely you'll be using the CMYK. That's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So that's basically the 2 color spaces. The first one is for screens and the second one is for printing. Now these are the 2 different types. You will notice how this is cyan, this is magenta, this is the yellow, and this is black in the middle. But for the red, green, and blue, this is green, this is red, this is blue. Now for colors, you want to describe a color, basically there are 3 classifications or 3 features you need to understand: hue, saturation, and value. Now hue basically means color. It's the same thing as saying the color. So the particular initial color is called the hue. But now saturation is basically the warmness and coldness of your design, of your color. So let's say the color, the warmer the color is going to be, the warmer the color is adding more of that color to the color. But let's say adding more of the color to the hue or hue to the color. The same thing I'm saying. But now the colder it is adding white to that color. Now brightness, that's for saturation. Now brightness basically is how bright or how much light is in that color, or how dark that color is. Now file format, this is something that confuses a lot of people. They're always wondering, how do I save my file, what do I save it as? Okay, so basically, to save your files, you must understand if it is a raster based or pixels based design, or a vector based design, so you know how to save it. So let's go into that now. The main file formats are JPEG, EPS, PSD, bitmap, and TIFF. JPEGs are usually used for complex pixel gradations and continuous tone. EPS are for storing vector or object-based artwork. Now PSD is basically Photoshop file, the raw file, the one that can still be edited. Then bitmap is used for storing continuous tone images or tonal images. Then TIFF is used for storing half tone and color images. So now this is basically everything you need to know about the fundamentals of graphic design, and we would go deeper into the practical aspects later on in the class. Thank you.
Okay, we made it to the end of today's class. Well done. Okay, if you liked what you just finished watching, or you learned something really impactful today, please hit the subscribe button below to get more design classes like this. See you in the next class.